Oil prices jumped 12% today as there's a tremendous amount of news surrounding the Saudi-Russia OPEC Plus meeting, and there's reports saying that cuts are as high as 20 million a day. That's twice as much as was expected. I'm Sean Pruitt, president of Kingdom Exploration. If you're in the oil business or you are an oil investor, this is a channel for you. Please subscribe. Oil prices jumped on Thursday on reports that Saudi Arabia and Russia have reached a deal on deep output cuts. According to Reuters, which cited two sources, and that cuts could reportedly be as high as 20 million barrels per day. I've never seen this before. The reported deal comes as a virtual meeting between OPEC and its allies known as OPEC Plus kicked off, in which some of the world's largest producers were set to discuss production policy as the coronavirus pandemic saps demand for crude. So one of the things that one of the key players in this is Donald Trump. Okay, he's putting tremendous amount of pressure on OPEC Plus, Russia, and what have you. Trump has added further pressure on the cartel's discussions, which are expected to be followed by G20 teleconference on Friday. But the threatening to slap very substantial tariffs on U.S. crude imports in order to protect jobs in the American energy industry. If I have to do tariffs on oil coming from outside, or if I have to do something to protect our tens of thousands of energy workers and our great companies that produce all these jobs, I'll do whatever I have to do. Donald Trump continues to keep the heat on these guys, on OPEC, on Saudi Arabia, on Russia, by continuing to say things like, I'll do whatever it takes. And Donald Trump has the authority and the power to do it. And he's one of the few leaders in this world that does what he says he's going to do, bottom line. So one of the things that a lot of people are discussing right now is, okay, is America going to partake in this OPEC Plus cut deal? Okay, and so it's been brought to Trump's attention. Saudi Arabia, Russia was like, hey, listen, we'll do this cut, but America has to get involved. They have to cut as well. Donald Trump's argument is, look, we're already cutting back. He said on Monday that U.S. oil producers were already cutting production. They're already cutting back, and they're cutting back very seriously. Now, what he means by that is because the oil and gas industry in America has taken a tremendous hit. Chevron's cutting back. All the major oil and gas producers are cutting back their budget to develop, okay? Signs are pointing toward, this is in America, signs are pointing toward a sharp drop-off looming or already here for U.S. oil producers. Oilfield service provider Baker Hughes has reported that in the last reporting period, the U.S. active rig count for oil and gas has fell by 64 rigs, the largest single week drop in 5 years. It brought the rig count down to 664 active rigs, which is the lowest level in over 3 years. So the rig count is dropping off. There are records. It's record breaking for how many layoffs in the oil and gas industry. And so Donald Trump's argument is, look, we're already cutting back naturally. Naturally, our oil and gas industry is falling apart. I want to talk about two more things before I get going here. Number one, I want to talk about COVID-19, and then also where I think oil prices are going. And so if you look here, Dr. Fauci agrees, New York likely seeing flattening of the curve on coronavirus. So the news has blown this coronavirus way out of proportion. It's not as bad as we thought. It doesn't make any sense to me personally, but it's the news, okay? They sell on fear, and they did a good job because everyone's in fear right now and we're all staying home. So where do I see oil prices going? Here's something you have to understand. Supply and demand has been here for the last 2,000 years, and it will continue to be here forever. I don't care how smart you are, how smart you think you are. If we have too much supply and little demand, oil prices are going to drop, okay? Now, over the last 5 years, we've been flooding the oil and gas industry with shale. We've had too much oil and gas over the last 5 years. That's why we averaged $50-something a barrel, okay? But the thing is that the news took shale and blew it out of proportion, just like they did the COVID-19, and they believe the talking heads of companies like Chevron. They get on there and they blind you to the truth. The truth was, out of 35 oil companies that they did analysis on, and they did reports on, a very thorough report came out and said they lost $84 billion out of the 35 companies that have been developing shale. Can you imagine taking 35 companies and they spent all this money to develop oil and gas just to come out negative $84 billion? Years and years of research and development, and years of talking heads getting on CNN and Fox News and Bloomberg and all these news channels talking about how amazing the shale industry is. But the truth is that they were losing. They were losing money. They'd spend $1 billion to extract oil out of the ground just to extract 800 million. That doesn't make any sense. To me, that's a losing proposition, okay? And so I'm here to tell you that the shale industry is falling. It's caving in right now, okay? You guys, it's been a slow death for the last 5 years. And they continue, and now it's even worse than it's ever been. And what we're seeing today, look, if we took the oil and gas industry and separated it from the GDP of America, the GDP of America, we're not in a depression. Okay, it's actually very strong considering what we're going through right now. But you set aside the oil and gas industry and put it on its own island, that island would be in the Great Depression. There are more oil and gas workers right now out of a job than ever before. Most of the numbers as far as unemployment and what have you is coming from the oil and gas industry. Rigs are being laid down. I have so many friends, I have so many colleagues that are calling me and says, Sean, how are you able to float through this thing? Because they can't make it happen. Okay, I'm one of the few blessed people that are still prospering in this time. And it's because, quite simply, in 2004, I invested in shale, in the Barnett Shale in Texas. It didn't work. And I looked at the geology. I said, this doesn't make any sense, guys. We're spending this much money on a frack, this much money to drill that deep just to get this much natural gas and oil. I'm done with shale. And I haven't been back to shale over the last 16 years. So shale has never worked for me, and now the truth finally is coming out, and now the light is shining on this thing, and I'm sitting there like, I told you so. And so the demand for oil is still there. When this COVID-19 is over, which it is, it's coming to a head, it's coming to a close, we're going back to work, the economy is going to grow quickly. Okay, it's going to come back very quickly. The news is preaching a different tune. They're saying doom and gloom. The economy's crushed. I don't think we're going to make it. Facebook is preaching something different as well. But we all learned the hard way. Well, shale, that what they were talking about, shale wasn't the truth. What they were talking about, COVID-19 wasn't the truth. And now they're talking about the economy. That's not the truth either. Because Donald Trump's economy is it's his winning ticket to win the election. And the Democrats know that the only way to beat Trump is to destroy his economy, okay? And is to destroy his oil and gas industry. So here's what's happening, okay? All the major hedge funds, all the major financial institutions and what have you, all that money for oil and gas has completely dried up. And now you're seeing an oil and gas apocalypse. There's no new production. There's no new development. And the reason why we started in shale, quite simply, there was no new places to develop. Where else is Chevron going to go spend $10 billion to develop oil and gas? Well, all we have is shale. Well, let's work with it. Well, we're spending $10 billion a year and we're only producing $8 billion after all said and done. Does that make any sense? Well, it looks good on paper. It looks good to our investors. Okay, let's do it. And so to me, that's a Ponzi scam. To me, when you put money in something and you get less than what you gave, that would be considered a loss. But then when you're lying to the public, saying how amazing everything is and how our stocks are going up, what have you, now that's a Ponzi scam. That's a lie. So I don't agree with that. But anyways, if you look at the destruction of new production because of anti-investment and an anti-oil agenda coming from the far left, and they're propping up green technology, you're seeing the perfect storm to destroy new development. Okay. Now, if you don't have new development, here's the thing: we're pumping out 13 million barrels a day, and that's predominantly from shale. Okay. Shale has a very fast decline. Okay. A conventional oil well, which is why Saudi Arabia has been able to produce for years and years and years, is because it's conventional. Shale oil has to use technology like fracking to extract it because it's so tight. Okay. Tight oil has a fast decline. So you have to drill a lot of shale. You got to spend billions and billions of dollars to maintain that 13 million a day. Now, what we're seeing today, rigs are coming off the market. Oil and gas companies are going out of business. You're seeing a major domino effect in the financial markets. They're divesting from oil. They're pulling out. And so without new development, that number, because it's a fast decline, it's going to drop quickly. Okay, so we're going to see a major reduction in oil output in America. We are going to see major deduction in oil output globally because the markets are getting impacted tremendously. And so it's not just impacting America, it's worldwide. There's some massive oil and gas industries all over the world. They're having to cut back as well because they don't have the money to continue to keep developing. And so what's going to happen? You're going to see it's going to peak. Okay, we might be producing this much oil, but we're on the turning point, and when it drops, it's going to drop quickly. Okay, and we're going to be in a situation here in the next 6 months to a year where we're just not going to have enough oil to meet demand, because now we're on that curve with major oil divestment. And here's the deal: if oil prices come back, shale's not coming back in a big way like it did in 2012-13. Why? Because investors are savvy enough to know, well, it didn't work. It didn't work in 2015, and now in 2020 it's not working either. So why would there's so many reports telling the truth today. It took us 5 years to find out the truth about shale. Now we know the truth, and now nobody's going to invest into it again. So even if oil prices come back, nobody's investing in shale again. So where's Chevron going to develop now? They don't have any new places to develop. That's why they were so. Otherwise, look, if you could develop in a field to make much more money than shale, they would have done it already. But they haven't. They don't have any other place. They're losing their butts right now because there was no other place to go. So bottom line, we're going to see a major reduction in oil output. We're on the curve. It's about to drop substantially. So output's going to drop. The demand for oil is about to increase again. And so now when those two meet head to head, where oil output drops and oil demand increases, you're going to see massive oil price increase, and we're not going to be able to fix the problem overnight. We're not going to be able to overnight just say, oh, we need to start developing. No, it's already too late. The oil and gas apocalypse has already started. There's a great depression in the oil and gas industry, and what you're going to see is record-breaking oil price increase. And we can't fix that overnight. And even if it was here today, we probably wouldn't be able to fix it because nobody wants to invest in oil right now because they know the truth about it. Okay? And so it's really simple, man. Supply and demand. And we are not developing for the future right now. So supply is dropping, demand is increasing, and oil prices will go up. That's why we saw $150 oil back in 2008. That's why we saw $130-something a barrel back in 2012. That's why we saw 100 plus oil in the 80s. Why? Because output started dropping, demand started increasing, and we built this demand from 30 years ago till now. We increased oil demand by 30 million a day. We went from 70 million to 100 million. That 100 million barrels a day doesn't just go away. It took 30 years to build it up to an additional 30 million a day. What was built in 30 years doesn't go away overnight. People just need to get on their cars and start driving again, but we're staying at home right now. And say, and all this doom and gloom that you see in the media, it's all a bunch of lies. I'm Sean Pruitt, president of Kingdom Exploration. If you like this channel, please subscribe, and I will come back very soon to continue to keep an eye on what's going on in the oil and gas industry and the markets and the news. Thanks.